Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to call the 20 November Board of Directors meeting to order. If I could ask you all to stand, please, and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'm Matt Cambick. I'm the president of our corporation, and I'd like to ask the rest of the head table to introduce themselves.
Dan Lendiger, Vice President.
Mark Eckert, Treasurer.
Sean Kreiderman, Secretary.
Chuck Hill, Director.
Denise Lexell, Director.
Larry Santora, Assistant Treasurer.
Walter Yazzie, General Manager.
Charlie Shawless, Recording Secretary.
Thank you. Our first order of business today is to approve the minutes of our October 30 Board of Directors meeting. I need a motion.
So moved.
A second? Second. That was Dan and Sean.
Charlie.
I have a motion. I have a motion and a second to approve the 30 October Board of Directors minutes. Any discussion at the board table? Any discussion with our residents? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next on our order is our strategic plan update. Rick? Next slide. Our mission statement, you all know it well. You've seen it every month this year. Our vision statement. Next slide. Our values. I must admit, from my foxhole, I think the values must be taken hold. It seems to me, and maybe it's just the time of the year we're getting to, but it seems to me we're treating each other better, and we're not doing the kind of crazy things we were doing earlier this year. So I'm very grateful if these values are helping that. I'm very pleased. Next slide. The stoplight chart definitions, in case you have not seen what the definitions are, I'll give it to you again. Next slide. And today I'm presenting our first goal, which was one of our priority goals for the year, strategic governance and empowered management. Next slide. This has been an area of focus, quite honestly, for the last 2 years. Next slide. Number 2, update the board and committee orientations. I've graded us at amber because with the new chief operating officer coming on board, this process will adapt to him. And so the new members of the board will go through the Darren Shaw approach to onboarding new board members. And number 5, enhancing communication with the residents. My position is no matter how much we do, no matter how much we try, there's always more that people are going to want from us in this area, and we're going to continue to pursue additional efforts to effectively communicate with our residents. Next slide. I would introduce Sean.
Trust Chris to turn it on. There he goes. It's magic. Good morning, everyone. Next slide, please. Goal 6, effective communications. SBHOA2 will improve its two-way communications with members and staff to keep them well informed on all HOA-related issues and activities and provide timely responses to questions and inquiries. Next slide. As you can see, we have pretty much continued to do what our objectives are. The only one we're working on still is evaluate new technology to improve communication efforts. Next slide. And these are my points. The actions that this board, the 2022-2024 board, has taken to produce effective communications. This is a partial list, because when I got up this morning and started thinking, oh, we did that, and we did that, so there's a lot more, but these are the highlights. The good to know, which started out as the true truth, is at the top of the Monday message. And why is it there? Because it's to review important items, repeat items from previous Monday messages, and to reveal forgotten rules. The video recordings are the personal interface between the board, Walter, and the residents. They have been done in both email blasts and in the Monday message. Videotaping of major meetings is for those that can't attend. What we need to remember, though, is it costs us to videotape these, because we have to bring staff in, then we have to have staff to edit it. So when somebody says, well, why aren't all the meetings taped? Why aren't all the committee meetings taped? Well, this is the best place to tape meetings. Ballroom's okay, but it is an expense when we do videotape these. We revamped the format of the Monday message in September, on the September 9th edition. We created it to be more accessible and more organized. The Monday message is more accessible and more organized now for our readers, and we had overwhelming positive response. Fact sheets. This is a little known part that Charlie and I have been working on all year. It's questions from residents. And what we've done is we've taken the question, we've researched it, and then we've put the details of the past history about a particular question. One of the questions that came in was, how was pickleball funded, and what did HOA2 have to do with funding the new courts? Well, that's something near and dear to my heart, so I was very happy to write out a fact sheet, and it's on the website. Personal contact with residents. Number one, besides 2 town halls, we did 9 additional unit reserve replacement fund meetings, small and sometimes very intimate groups because the rooms were too small. But we went ahead and did that so residents would have an opportunity to come and ask a question other than in a town hall meeting. The other thing I don't think some of you realize is that not everybody in Saddlebrook is as affluent as their neighbor. We've struggled this year when we had the dues and then the special assessment right on top of it. And some of your neighbors had trouble paying both of those amounts. So Walter and Matt and I made personal visits to people's homes, not to embarrass them, but to say, you've always been a good resident and you've always paid your dues. What's going on? And it was very, very interesting what we found out. And the last thing, which I personally am very proud of, the resident communication record, the response from this board is well within 24 hours, usually within 12. And if we don't have the answer for you, we will revisit it with additional information if needed. Sometimes the response is, thank you for your thoughts, because there's nothing we can change at that moment. But I keep a resident communication record for each month, and I send it to the board. And if they get personal requests, they need to send them to me so I can put them into the resident communication record. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean, for that update. Next on our agenda is the general manager's update. Walter?
All right, thank you. Thank you, Matt. Just waiting for this to come up. Are you? Okay. There There we go. That's just to verify that it is on. All right, thank you, Matt. I'm just going to be very short today. Usually I go over a lot of different little details. I'm going to, again, like I usually do, refer you to the Monday message, the website, to see what's going on around the community. Just some quick highlights. Thanksgiving at the Preserve and Mountain View are both sold out. There's a waiting list now, so those, thank you for signing up for Thanksgiving here at Saddlebrook. New Year's Eve party is selling out pretty quick. Last I checked, there was only about 40 spots left, so if you're planning on going to the New Year's Eve party, jump on that and get your reservation there. A lot of good things going on, so I'm not going to cover that because Bill is here and Terry's here, and they'll give you some more details. But what I wanted to do today is, as I started as general manager about 2 years ago, I put up a little tag that said, "I appreciate you, Saddlebrook 2." And I've tried to carry that theme throughout the whole time I've been general manager. So I'd like to just end my, I guess, my tour of being the general manager just by saying to the residents, I appreciate you. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you for supporting the staff in all the activities that they've provided for you. I'd like to say thank you especially to those that volunteer on the committees. This is an incredible community. The folks that come out and dedicate their time, their efforts, without any pay to these committees is incredible. It just shows you how unique this community is and how special the folks are that are here. So thank you to those that have all volunteered to be on committees and dedicate your time. To the board and all the other boards I've served with, I don't know why you do it. It is tough. I watch as you deal with the residents and those that may or may not agree with you, and I have to say hats off to you for stepping up to lead your community. Again, just inspiring to see that you have those type of people here in the community. And to finish off, I've got to say to my staff, they have been incredible. They're here every day. They're here all night. There's someone here when it's below freezing. There's someone here when it's over 110 degrees. So I just got to say thank you to my staff also. And I will leave this place. I will miss this place. And I just got to say I appreciate you and thank you for all your support. And that's it, man.
I don't think we're going to give you the mic anymore today, Walter. Bill?
Good morning, Bill McGinn, Director of Facilities Operations. Great father, trophy husband, and an all-around good guy. Oh, good morning, everybody, and thank you, Walter, for everything that you've done for me since I started here. I really do appreciate it. As I start every meeting, I've got my 3 goals that I start every morning with. Again, financial stewardship, effective communication, and the member experience. I always have that on my mind. And as we did the budget, I'm really looking forward to see how much money I get next year. So we'll see what we can do. I'm really looking forward to the future. So next slide, please. So as most of you know, the pool is all up and running. Here's a wide angle that I got from Joey Mendez that he did with the drone. And I think that the pool came out fantastic. I think people are enjoying it now. So we're really happy with everything all the upgrades that we did. So if I could get the next slide, please. You know, I mean, from the electrical upgrades to the shower upgrade to the landscape, which we worked hard with Cam on, it came out great. I hope everybody is enjoying it. I know we did, seeing all the progress go through. This being November, I don't really have a lot of projects going on, and that's a good thing because we took care of just about everything that was on the reserve list. So we are taking care of a few more projects that are little in scope. Next slide, please. As you all know, the next slide. Okay. The cornhole courts are up and running. We actually had our own little luncheon out there on Thursday. I heard it went really well, but I had to miss it. I had family come in, so. But everything's going well over there. A few small projects. We had a wall repair we had to do in the month of November, and some outlets installation that our team did. So really happy with all that. As we do, we continue to keep this place up and running every morning with my maintenance ninjas and my custodial superheroes. If you need an update, you can go ahead and take a look at my project board that comes up on the monitors, is in the Monday message, on the report. It's hard to keep up with that because we're moving so fast, but we do try to take care of it as much as we possibly can. Next slide, please. So a look to the future. Again, I can't wait to see when we get these projects installed to see if all the money's there. I'd like to get it up and running in January, but we are upgrading the pool system to a clear comfort system. New CAT systems, everything should be helping us to monitor the chemical going in, keeping things safe and clear for the folks that use the pools and the 7 bodies of water that we have around here. We're looking at, just how our bulk order is going. That's already installed. That's all. Some of you all seen the white tanks that are hanging up over the top. They were a little taller than we were expected, but they are all up and running, and we're really looking forward to see how much we can produce a savings for us. Next slide, please. And here you have it, my magical team. The people that I want to appreciate every day. They just go around, they take care of things, they do everything I ask them to do, and a lot of what the board asks us to do. But they're constantly doing something. Throughout the year, I'm actually working on a slide for next month that'll probably be more of just listening to the slide and rather than me. So if you see these folks out and about, please thank them. I mean, they show up every morning, every night, take care of all the restock in the bathrooms, cleaning everything, making sure all the lights are on. We were actually here this morning fixing about 6 of them. So we can come in here and see the heat that you have here this morning was turned on at about 5 o'clock this morning so that we're not freezing in here. So these are the people that make it happen every day. Again, it's better that you don't see them, but things are working. And if you have any concerns or anything, get a hold of me. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. As most of you know, if you email me, I email you as soon as I can. So with that, that's my slide, that's my show. So thank you, everybody.
Bill's the poster child for Walter has created across the staff. I'm going to talk about this in a few minutes, but when you see Bill talking about coming to work in his mission and he's focused on those strategic goals that are connected to the board goals, Walter's got the entire staff doing that. And the result of that is going to be well known after Walter's gone. And it'll be early next year before we get the true operational picture of the success that the staff's produced. What I want to point out about Bill, because he is an all-round good guy, but he keeps pressing the board. He keeps pressing the board. He doesn't just do things. He wants to do things better. He wants to do things more efficiently, and he wants to do things more cost effectively. Up until the very last ink, and that's hard to say because Mark changes everything just about every day. But seriously, up until our last board huddle, this guy was twisting our arm about improvements he wanted to make and funds he needed to do that. And that's part of the 2025 budget, and you are getting your money.
Fantastic.
Terry?
Good morning. I'm Terry Dempsey, Director of Finance. I'd like to take a second to thank Walter for his leadership over the last few years, friendship as well. Walter has seen me through some tough times, and I appreciate him talking me down off the ledge many times. So he's going to be missed. So thank you, Walter. Okay, I'm going to review the October financial highlights. All right, so for cash for October, we had operating cash of a little over $4 million. Reserve cash was $5.6 million. CIF cash is at $1.5 million. So for a combined cash total of $11,313,000. The change from September is it went down cash went down $1.6 million. This is largely due to a Roadrunner paving payment that we made of $746,000, and the rest of it is just basic operations. Okay, next slide. Okay, this is our year-end projection slide. Basically compares what I'm assuming is going to be for the end of the year and comparing that to what we had reforecasted. So the center column is my projection for 2024. It's a very basic, simple projection that takes the year-to-date actual through October, plus our reforecast amounts for November and December. Though a lot has changed since we did this reforecast in July, this at least gives us an idea of where we may end up the year. So the reforecast isn't perfect, but it gives us something to actually compare to. The reforecast is the column that's in yellow. Our projected revenue dues is $20,000 better than what was reforecasted. Other revenue, which includes transfer fees, penalties and interest for late payments, ALC fees, communications income from Verizon, some miscellaneous and interest income. These were $24,857 better than what the reforecast was. Let's see, interest is currently projected at $6,000 better than what the reforecast was. And sure, it'll be, we think it'll be a lot more since some of the investments that we made to remove some of the idle cash we had laying around, so we put it into investment paper. Our amenity revenue is projected to be $12,000 better than what was reforecasted, with fitness leading the way with $16,000 better than the reforecast. All the revenue is going to be $57,294 better than what was reforecasted. Okay, the next slide. Next slide is our expenses. So expenses are projected to be $626,580 better than what was reforecasted in July, and golf common area are doing well against what was reforecasted. So. As a result, our income before depreciation is projected to be positive $47,897, and this is $683,000 better than what we had reforecasted. Okay, next slide. All right, our summary income statement for October. October, there was a net income of $53,000 after an adjustment for a payroll accrual. This adjustment basically overstated what was September results were and understated October results. Year to date is correct. I broke out this adjustment so you could easier see what it was, and it's easier to compare year to year. With that, net income is 69% less than what it was in October of 23. Revenue was slightly down in October 24 compared to October of 23 by 6.4%. Combined net amenities are much better than October of 23 by 41%. Operating expenses, which include general administration, facilities, common area, and patrol, were 70% higher than what they were in October of 23. And this is a bit misleading since in October of 23, there was an adjustment for real estate taxes in it, which makes October 23 a little bit less. So that's, I think it came in around 50% without that adjustment. Okay, next slide. Food and beverage combined had a subsidy in October of $58,000. It's 74% more than what it was in October 23. Revenue Mountain View was 23% better than October of 23. The preserve revenue is 6% better from October of 23. Combined restaurants was 17%, combined restaurant revenue was 17% better than what it was in October of last year. Mountain View expenses came in at 27% higher than October of 23, and preserve expenses were 17% higher, and combined expenses were 23% higher than October of 23. Okay, next slide. Okay, this slide basically shows the combined F&B revenue is still increasing. Mountain View Bar and Grill projected revenue is $2.4 million over 2023, and Preserve projected revenue of $1.3 million, and that's about 8% over what 2023 was. Next slide. Our cost of goods sold, or COGS as we call it, is 32.4% for Mountain View and is at 46% at Preserve. Next slide. Okay, so combined golf had a subsidy of $29,000, which is 76% better than October 23. Mountain View Golf was 54% better than October 23, and Preserve was slightly down by 3% from October of 23. Combined golf revenue was 28% better than October of 23, so much better. Combined golf expenses were down 11% from October of 23, and Mountain View just about even with October 23, with Preserve being 2% better than October 23, so golf is doing a good job controlling expenses there. Combined subsidy for October is $29,000 compared to October 23 when it was $122,000, which is a 76% decline, so much better. Next. Our dues allocation through October, $2,917 per rooftop for year to date, and clockwise on the pie chart, restaurants, of that $2,917, restaurants was $111, reserves, $850, patrol, $81, common area, $351 went into it, facilities, $480, G&A was $667, and G&A includes front office staff, IT, marketing, accounting, HR, and such. Fitness was $82, theater lifestyle combined were $12, and golf was $302. And I think there might be one more slide. All this information can be found on the SBHO2 website at my HOA2 governance and policies, financial reports, and monthly financials. Thank you very much. Enjoy your holidays and happy Thanksgiving. And thank you. Okay.
That's a much better financial picture than the one I gave you 4 or 5 months ago. Terry, thank you. I'm going to save all my Terry love for my budget comments. I want to take this time to introduce, we just finished our election for the new 2025 board members, and I see 2 of them. Our leading vote getter was Brad Nickham. I don't see Brad. Bless his heart. Somebody should be playing golf. Sherry Groupie, would you stand up and wave at the camera so the folks at home know who you are? And Janine Grippo. Janine, would you stand up and wave to the folks? And Sherry asked me when I called her up and said, well, what do we do now? And I said, roll up your sleeves. We're going to go to work. And so Darren gets here in 12 days, and more to follow. Okay. I want to make some remarks about the budget before I turn it over to our treasurer, Mark Ecker. And we made a commitment at the beginning of this year that we were going to give this community a budget for 2025, a 5-year budget for the years 2025 through 2029, and a 10-year financial projection. I'm proud to report to you today that Mark Eckert has got all that done with a lot of other people I'm going to talk about here in a minute. I want you to know that this budget provides financial certainty and predictability across the next 5 years. It maximizes the use of all available funding sources that the board has at its disposal within this corporation. It minimizes annual dues increases, and Mark will get into that. And we pay cash for all of the $28.5 million of reserve fund projects that we're going to execute over the next 5 years. And thanks to Larry Santora's leadership and vision, we've implemented a component fund line strategy for the renovation of the preserve golf course, which is scheduled for 2029, so you can see on an annual basis how we're going to make that happen. So I want to express my appreciation, my personal appreciation to some folks. I want to start with Mark Eckert, our treasurer. I didn't know how difficult this task was going to be when I looked at Mark and said, "Get her done." And so he went to work and he built a spreadsheet that choked all of us and you couldn't print it on any piece of paper at any size. But Mark, you got us there. I need to thank Walter Yazzie, our general manager, because I squeezed him real hard, because there were people on this board squeezing me real hard. I need to thank Terry Dempsey. A lot of goodness has happened in this year, and like I said, you're not going to get to hear really all the outcomes until next year, and Walter won't be here to see it, but I know the progress we made from the original reforecast to today is extraordinary. I want to thank Campbell Cheney, who has spent numerous hours with me checking and double checking Mark and Terry's work. And Campbell, thanks. I want to thank the Finance Committee for all of their work to provide oversight to us and give us their counsel. I want to thank Lee Lexell and the Golf Committee. We couldn't have produced a 5-year budget without a strategy to get to 2029. And thanks to Lee and the Golf Committee and Team Troon. I've got to thank the construction people from Troon, the operations expertise from Troon, and the agronomic expertise from Troon that went into deliberations and debate about strategies on how we do the renovation for the preserve golf course. And most importantly, I want to express my appreciation to my fellow board members. I've worked this board really, really hard this year on a great many tasks, and they've stood up to every one of them, but none better than this budget process. You've had to sit in more than 10 hours of formal meetings with the community, as well as the numerous hours we've all spent trying to get this budget to the finish line. I also want to look at Larry Santor and Dan Liniger. Thank you, Janine. I give that one to Janine. But Larry and Dan and I, Mark decided to take a 3-week vacation right in the middle of crunch time between budget 1 and budget 2. So it took 3 of us to take over for Mark, and it was Larry and Dan and I that sat around in the smoke-filled admin conference room trying to figure out how we were going to squeeze Walter and the staff even harder. So I want to thank you all for that time and that effort. I want to conclude my remarks because I've been part of a 2-year journey. It started when Dan Liniger was the president and last year's board members, and it rolled into this year. And that's the way board work is. It rolls from year to year. And as you roll from year to year, you pick up the work that started in a year and you keep moving it forward. But our commitment to one another, and Campbell sitting over there, he was our treasurer last year. We sat around and we developed a excellence in governance strategy. because the community told us how little they lacked, how little they trusted the board and the staff in governing the community. And we wanted to change that. The first leg of that strategy was the strategic plan. We started work on that last year, early last year. We wrapped that up late last year, and we rolled it out to the staff and our committees in January. And what you saw in Bill's briefing slides was the connectivity from the board to the staff. And if I had all my committee chairs stand up there and brief their objectives, their goals for the year, you would see that every committee was connected to those board goals. So the first leg was the strategic plan. The second leg of excellence in governance was the facility master plan. I still haven't seen the final document, but we spent 5 or 6 months this year with a task force that looked at all the assets in our community, and we put together ideas for future boards to consider. Soon that facility master plan will be completed and will be another tool in our kit. And the last leg of that three-legged stool that we discussed last year was a long-range financial plan. And today's financial update that you're going to get from our treasurer fulfills that commitment. We're going to deliver the 2025 budget. We're going to deliver the 5-year plan. And we do have a 10-year financial projection. None of this is possible without a lot of great teamwork. And Walter, I'd like to ask you one more time to come up here. Our new chief operating officer starts in 12 days. Darren Shaw is probably the antithesis of my good friend Walter Yazzie here. He spent the last 30 years learning how to manage large HOAs like ours. And so he brings an expertise, and when Walter was serving in the Air Force and I was playing Army, Darren was running communities. And so you heard a lot of good stuff today about thanks, Walter, for all that you've done. It was 7 months ago that Walter, Dan, and I sat down and have a conversation about excellence in governance and the future of our community. Walter spent probably an hour and a half taking Dan and I through the last 2 years. And then I took Walter to my school at PSOT. And we had a conversation about what we were doing well and what was missing. And when that conversation ended, Walter looked at me and said, "You're right." And so it made it very easy to go back to the board and make the next steps, and that was to get into pursuit to bring in somebody with the vast experience that we need. I asked Walter to stay. We, the board, asked Walter to stay. And he chose to stay, his choice, until the new chief operating officer showed up here to serve the community. By contract, Walter only had to give us 30 days. He could have left us in May. But he stayed here, and he's gone through everything that I've gone through this year, side by side with me. And we've had what I'm going to deem a very successful year. Walter, I don't know many people, and the words that were used, on Monday, the board had breakfast with Walter. It was our final opportunity to express our personal appreciation to him privately. And in there, the words character and loyalty were used by members of this board. And I can tell you, I spent a lot of time serving with a lot of great folks. And Walter may not have experience at some things in this community that we need experience with, but what he has a wheelbarrow full of is character and loyalty. And on behalf of this entire board, I want to express our appreciation for what you've done to get us to November 20, 2024. So thank you. And I appreciate it.
Thanks.
And now what you really came here to hear, Mark Eckert is going to provide you with the key points in the 2025 budget and our 5-year plan.
Take this out. Okay, thank you. Before I get started, one thing I wanted to say, and I just wanted to reiterate, when we got into the beginning of this year and we knew we were going to have a severe budget problem, having a golf course closed for 6 months that was completely unplanned, to no fault of anybody here, it was a disaster from a financial standpoint. And to their credit, the staff, Walter and the staff got together and they did some enormous amount of work, as you could see from the last report, almost bringing it back to where it would have been. Part of that is, of course, a gigantic improvement in the performance of the golf course, which we've seen since we opened up Mountain View, which we had hoped was going to happen and has exceeded our expectations. I guess it shows when you have a good product, people will use it. But anyway, I just want to thank the board and the staff for all the work they did. It sure made my life a lot easier here at the end of this year, because the final report could have been a lot uglier than it was turned out to be. So thanks so much. Anyway, yes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give an overview for the budget, and basically, if you look back at the beginning of where we started the budget in the beginning, early this year, this year, we had these main goals, okay? Obviously, provide the necessary financial resources to assure the amenities and facilities continue to operate at a good level, sustain resident experience and home values. That is a top priority for every budget in the HOA. Provide a path to fund for the next 5 years of reserve needs. As we've talked about from meetings early this year, we knew we had a $28.5 million hump that we were going to have to get over because of the age of our facilities. Provide a path for all the needed funding that's provided for future competitive dues. So that was a top priority, is to try to figure out how can we do this and still have long-term competitive dues, which we know right now we have an issue with. One of the things that came up that Matt mentioned, that Larry had brought up, was separate out and create a dedicated reserve savings account for funding the preserve golf course renovation, and that is something that we had as a goal. Try to utilize much more in the way of investments and money market accounts as primary savings tools for all of our operations, capital improvements, and reserve accounts. Continue to evaluate future project requirements and timing to be most cost efficient, while still assuring that the resident quality, lifestyle, and operational efficiency continue. And then continue to work on projected amenity net costs in later years. Okay, there wasn't a lot of effort spent specifically on that. We really focused on making sure we could get to the end game in '29 on our reserves, and also make sure that the '25 budget was where we wanted to be. But certainly there's going to be continued work this coming year to work on '26 through '29 to continue to drive the amenity net costs to where they need to be. So, next slide. So I want to make this is just a few of the key budget points that I wanted to cover. Just a reminder, our wages and burden are well over 50% of all of our HOA2 costs. So that is really the biggest contributor that we have to handle from a budget standpoint. With that, the overall staffing level is unchanged from the previous year. It's virtually identical as far as the total FTEs, full-time equivalents. We had to tackle a minimum wage increase of 4.5%, up to $15 an hour that's effective January 1st. That had to be rolled in. That's something we had no control over. And we have quite a few people that are paid by hourly wages here. Assume an overall inflation rate to be 4%. Again, that's a completely crystal ball thing, but that's what we based that on. And we also set the dues to increase no more than 2.9% this year or next year, and then 3% in the future years, which allows us to ultimately get to a very competitive dues in the future. Another goal we had was to not have a special assessment in 2025. We had a large one, of course, this year, which the community supported, and to try to limit it to at least the $300 per year in 26 through 29. Again, assuming 180 retail home sales in 25, we're actually going to do better than that in 24, but 180 is what we've been consistently seen as a minimum. As Matt said, we are basically using every resource we can to fund what we need for the next 5 years. So right now, the plan to transfer 100% of the CIF fees to the reserves the next 5 years. One thing that happened in 2018 when we purchased the golf courses, we did an internal loan of $2 million. We've been paying off $100,000 of that every year from an accounting standpoint. It's just been part of the budgets. We have enough cash in the operations funds, so we are finishing that loan, paying it off internally, transferring $1.3 million from operations to the reserve accounts before the end of this year. I set a personal goal of just maintaining a minimum of operational savings balance of $1 million. That's just something I want to do. Future boards may change it, but we need to have some sort of safety margin for savings in case something unplanned comes up, as we have had in the past with some nasty surprises with some pricing. And then maintain a minimum reserve savings balance of about $3.1 million. And as you'll see a little later, we've been able to more than maintain that. So, next slide. So let me give you a quick overview of where we are from a budget, 2025 budget. This is just an overview. You'll see all the detailed information on the budget. It's going to be loaded on the website either today or tomorrow, but this is just overview. So from an operations standpoint, the budget, the income from dues, you can see $8 million, other income, the amenity income, and the total operating revenue that's in the 25 budget is about $17.3 million. I think people can. Okay, well, all right. There we go. So anyway, $17.3 million. Operating expenses from the departments, about 16.95, 17 million. Operating capital, lease expenses. So we do have capital equipment and leases, but that are paid out of the operating budget, and that's what the 148 grand is. So the total expenses, 17.1 million. Our net income before depreciation is about 194,000, which is a really nice balance at the end of the year based on our projections of where we're going to end up in 25 as far as the net from an operations standpoint. Next slide. So from a reserve standpoint, which is the one that had the biggest challenge for us, of course, the percentage from dues that's going into the reserves in 25 is the 3.4. The income from the, and you'll see details on some of this in the next few slides. The income from the CIF fees, 648,000. Income from investments, about 190,000. So the total reserve fund revenue for the year is about 4.3 million. Total reserve expenses is about 3.3 million. So you'll see the difference, obviously, is a gain. I wanted to list some of the major, now there's a lot of things that are in the reserve expenses projected for this year. And if you want to have the patience and go and look at the detailed budget that you'll see that's loaded, every one of them is detailed, okay? But what I wanted to do is I wanted to just list what I'd call maybe the big things that have a lot of dollars associated with them that we're spending money on in 25. So we've got money in there to renovate the reserve the Mountain View restaurant, the lobby, the hallway, the patio area. This is something that a lot of the residents asked if we could do. The money is in there. Now, of course, because something is budgeted doesn't necessarily mean it's all going to get spent, but it's in the budget. So as far as the Mountain View lobby and restrooms, again, these are very dated. These were also added to the budget. They're in the reserve study to be renovated. There's money in there for that. The Desert View Theater curtains and stage floor and lighting. These curtains are almost falling apart, so these things are the original curtains, so there's money in there for that. One thing we moved up, this was scheduled to be out a couple more years, but given Troon's recommendation and the condition of the pump station, we have budgeted for renovating completely the preserved golf pump station in '25. There's about $105,000 of preserved kitchen equipment, ceilings, tiles, a lot of other equipment that's very dated, very old, and needs to be replaced. And then our roads, which is an annual expense. For '25 right now, it's about $733,000. Now that doesn't add up, of course, to $3.3 million. There's a lot of other things in there, but these are some of the big ticket items, I would say. Next slide. From a capital improvement fund standpoint, and again, this is for things that we don't have today that we want to invest in the future, that primarily give benefit to the residents. So again, we have the income from the CIF. That comes from resales of homes. That 180 homes I mentioned, times the annual dues, that's what funds this. So this doesn't come from the residents, this comes from new owners. Income from Comcast, which is a contract we have with them. Interest income from the investments. As I said, we're transferring 100% of that CIF income from fees over to reserves for the next 5 years. So the total income to the capital improvement fund is going to be $72,000, total gain. The CIF expenses that we've got budgeted, we are buying out our solar power contract. That we have an electric solar power system that's mounted on the top of the parking, a covered parking over here at the Mountain View building. That was a contract that was started a number of years ago, but by buying it out, we have a very good payback, just a few years of payback, and then we're going to enjoy the energy savings from that. These are two investments. The cam mulcher and excavator were made a year, 2 years ago as part of our major commitment as a board to do something about our common area. Those are long-term leases, and those are the costs of the leases for this coming year. The Cornhole Club, the board approved a request by the club to do a 50% cost share of their one-time expense to setting up the Cornhole Club with the courts and the equipment they need. The pool cleaning system, I think we talked about that just a little bit here ago. That's one of the big investments that we decided to go ahead and do that's going to pay back. It's got a very good payback for saving us future costs. There's a new piece of rehab equipment that we needed for the Desert View Fitness Room. That's in there. So our total capital improvement expense is $236,000. That's what we're going to spend on what we call new equipment or things that benefit the residents that's in the budget. As you can see, we're only putting in $72,000. We're spending $236,000. So, you know, one of the downsides of using that $648,000 for the next 5 years is we're going to be eating into our capital improvement fund over the next 5 years. It's just part of the way we had to make it work. So that's just the reality of the way the budget is going to be set up right now. Next slide. So I wanted to give you an idea of the dues composition based on the '25 budget. This is similar to what Terry just showed from an October standpoint. This is where your money goes. Our dues are going to be $3,600 next year. Here's an idea of where the money goes. And you can see, you know, although there's a lot of attention to things, golf and food and beverage are going to do much better next year. Food and beverage, $118. It's barely what you would spend if you went out for one nice dinner for the year with your wife, depending on where you go. My wife likes a little bit nicer dinners, but anyway, and golf is $146. So really, the vast majority of the money that you're paying for dues is for all these other things, so that help us maintain our lifestyle and our enjoyment. Next slide. I wanted to give you some information about our dues history, because I think this is really important. I mean, this is a really important slide. You know, when we took over transition and the boards looked at what they had to do, knowing what we were going to be seeing with our gigantic reserves expenses coming up with such an old amount of facilities, we had to make some pretty drastic, previous boards had to make some pretty drastic decisions on increasing on dues. So one of the things that we had, as I mentioned in a priority, is to try to get to the point where in the end game, we are going to get our dues back to being very competitive against most of our other areas that we compete against for home sales. And we've accomplished that. So this is the projection for what dues are based on the budget and the plan that we've got. 2.9% actually for this year, this coming year, $100, and then 3% for the next 4 years. Now, I do have a 10-year projection also that I've done based on where we are with reserves. It's not included in the budget. We only did the first 5 years, which is a critical hump that we have to get over. But the next years are also 3%. So within 10 years, we're going to be very competitive from a dues standpoint. That's based on the projection that we've got right now. So, but I think it's really interesting to see this history and to see what these 5 years now are based on our budget, which is one of the main goals we had that we wanted to accomplish, is to not have any gigantic increases in dues. So, next slide. Okay, so here's a kind of a summary slide that tells you the total amount of dues that we collect and which pocket in the same pair of pants do they go into. Okay, they're either going to go into dues or they're going to go into the operating fund. And this is basically a reflection of what the 25 budget is and the next 4 years after that for 29. So based on the dues going up, you can see where the total income that we collect from dues. You can see the percentage of dues that are going into the operating fund, and you can see the amount of money that's going to be going into the reserve fund. And then you can see the totals across here. Next slide. Again, I talked about the projections for the community improvement fee, which is the resales. And this is basically, we've projected 180 homes every year, which has historically been pretty accurate or conservative. Projected dues for the next 5 years, and the projected revenue for the next 5 years coming from that's going into the reserves. Next slide. Okay, we talked about special assessments, okay? I said one of the things that we committed to was, because of the large special assessment we had in 24, is to not have a special assessment in 25, and that we've accomplished. So there's no special assessment in 25. We've got a projected number of homes. This is the average number of homes for the year, which is what you'd base the calculation on. And you can see the revenue in 25 is 0. You can see that we really had no other option. We had to plan on a $300 assessment for the next 4 years after that. And you can see what the projected revenue is going into reserves for those 4 years. Next slide. So, how does that all come together? Well, this is the summary slide, okay? So, how are we gonna pay for our big bill that we knew we had coming up in the next 5 years with the reserves? So right now, I'm projecting, and I think it's pretty accurate because at this point we're mid-November, we're gonna have the reserve balance starting at the beginning of the year at about $6.4 million. That's how much we're going to have. Now that includes the $1.3 million we're going to transfer over in December from the operating fund. I just showed you a slide a few slides ago that the dues income, where it's going to come from in the next 5 years, is $18 million. That was from a few slides ago. The interest income is going to be about $936,000 for the next 5 years. That's how much we're making by moving a lot of our money into money market accounts and more money into investments. The community improvement fee, there's that $3.44 million that I showed you just a slide or two ago from the community improvement fees, putting all 100% of that into the reserves over the next 5 years. The assessment income, again, 0 assessment in 25, but this is the amount of money from the assessments going into the reserves from 26 through 29. Total revenue over the next 5 years of what's going into the reserves is $32,900,000. The expenditures are projected at $28.5 million, which means at the end of 29, we'll still have $4.4 million in the reserves. So that is the way the budget is all created right now, to end up with a healthy reserve balance, still paying for all $28.5 million of expenses. And that's how we're going to do it. Next slide. Okay, so, well, with any budget, there's always uncertainties. It's impossible because you have to predict and guess what's going to be happening in the future. And how well you guess determines how well you do with your budget. These are very common things that have been in every budget. Again, we're assuming inflation will continue to be at 4% or less, okay? All sorts of things could change that could cause that to hopefully be better or be worse, but this is what you have to base the budget on. We're going to continue to assume that golf revenue is going to continue to be strong. Golf revenue has skyrocketed since we opened up Mountain View, and so we're getting great support from the golfers. We're getting golfers from HOA 1 playing now at Mountain View, so we're seeing a lot of great things from that. F&B revenue is way up in '24 and is projected to be, again, up with a nice pace in '25. So again, we're just hoping that we can continue to do the right things there and continue to have the residents support that. We're going to assume that the weather influences on golf are going to be no worse than what we've traditionally seen. That's an assumption. We don't control that, unfortunately. We're going to assume, and I think this is a pretty good assumption because I've done an enormous amount of work with the Duff at the Finance Committee, to have more accuracy with our reserve fund expenses. Okay, so just as a reminder, the reserve funds had historically been established, the cost for things had been established by the Reserve Advisor Study, which is done every 3 years. So the last study is 2022. The costs that are in that study are from 2021. Okay, so when you use costs that are basically 4 years old to predict what something's going to cost, you can get bit pretty badly when you have a high inflationary spiral time period like we had. And so this year we had some nasty surprises. You know, the Mountain View Boulevard, you know, that was budgeted for $688,000 in the reserve study cost us $980,000. Okay, you know, the golf originally that we had to do for the tennis courts was almost double what the Reserve Advisor Study said it was going to cost. Well, we had to fix that. And so what we've done is we've done a lot of work to do what I'd call a more accurate reserve study that's a living document and trying to update it with really costs that we have that we know are accurate. Now, it's not complete, but certainly we've done a lot of work, and I feel much better at least about a lot of the costs that are in the reserve plan for items now than I could say a year ago. Now, it's still going to be work in progress for next year, but it is in much better shape. So, but we could still have some surprises because not everything has been analyzed. So, you know, you never know what can happen. But that is certainly one of the uncertainties that we hopefully have addressed much better. And then, of course, we have to assume new home sales and resales are going to be as projected. Historically, I think that's pretty safe. We're going to have resales of over 200 homes this year, so that's great. We're guessing on 180. New home sales are going to be going down, okay? As Robeson builds out these last couple sections, and you'll see, if you look at the detailed budget, you'll see that the number of new homes that we allow for is going down every year, okay? So, next slide. So anyway, as a summary, two things that were most important for us to accomplish, as Matt had said, was the 2025 budget has a very good year-end net income before depreciation of the $190,000 I mentioned, and with basically a very conservative, I think, increase in dues and no special assessment in '25. That was one of the main goals we had going into the budget, and we've accomplished that. The '25 budget projection, which is over the next 5 years, pays for the required reserve expenditures with no debt, no loans. That was another high priority. We've accomplished that. So now, by accomplishing that, what we've done is we've maximized about every place we can pull money from. Okay, so you got the maximum CIF that we can get money out of. We've got the maximum dues after '25 that we can take without having a vote from the community. Obviously, if any of these assumptions on cost are wrong, future boards are going to have to look at that and fix it, but basically any budget is based on assumptions. So, but the good news is we have accomplished the two main goals that we wanted to accomplish for '25 to to try to help with what the community wanted to see. So, next slide. So basically, as a summary, I'd say the budget meets both our 25 operation requirements and our 25 to 29 reserve expense requirements, while still maintaining the quality of our community and ensuring our operational efficiency, which is the top goal that we had from a budget standpoint. So I guess at this point, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the 2025 budget from a board standpoint, and I am completed, so. So I guess we need to have a motion. Yep. Yep.
Okay, I have a motion that we approve the 2025 budget has been prepared and we've reviewed. I need a second.
Nobody wants to approve it, huh?
I'll second.
Okay. Dan was more aggressive than Chuck, so we'll put Dan in there as the second.
Put Chuck down. No, put Chuck down. I like Chuck, so.
Yeah, Chuck likes you. Okay, any discussion at the board table? Any discussion with our residents?
Just a quick question. The SIF starting balance is going to remain, whatever was here in 2024 stays there, and it's only the new stuff coming in that moves 100% to reserve starting in 2025?
That's correct. Yeah, this has got nothing to do with the 24 budget. This starts in 25.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a comment, if I could, real quick. One of the things that Mark's done a lot of stuff here, obviously, and it's been very important to our community, and I want to thank him personally for taking so much time to spearhead this effort. But I also wanted to mention something that he's talked about early on for actually a couple of years, and that is this reserve living document. And you really can't do much forecasting if you really don't start from a place that you believe in. And I think the work that a lot of people have put into it, especially Duff Fletcher is part of the Finance Committee and has really done a lot of work in combination to this effort to get us to a place with some predictability that is much greater than it had been in the past for these reserve items that are so big in terms of money cost. So I just want to thank both Mark and certainly Duff for that work, because this will be an ongoing effort, and it is really an important effort for financial stability within our community, given the size typically of our reserve needs. So thank you, Duff, for that work, and thank you, Mark, for getting that ball rolling.
Thank you, Dan. Any other questions or comments from our residents? So I have a motion to approve the 2025 budget. I have a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. It's unanimous, Charlie. The 25 budget is approved. I need to ask the patience of my board. Yes, as part of the 2025 budget. I've got to add to our agenda. You okay? I need to get a resolution approved by the board. And so I need to explain to you what we're in the middle of. You know, we had a special meeting last week. We had to deal with some employment issues and legal issues. And one of those is the sale of the Rocky Terrace property that we took ownership of last year. We took ownership of the house, but we had a lien on it over $450,000 with HUD. And so we have been working tirelessly. Campbell had the baton last year. Mark had it for a little while, and Dan had it for a little while, and then it got passed to me. And we've had about 2 years of frustration. The good news for our community is we've got a buyer for the house. We've been working with the title company for the last couple of weeks. We got HUD, and this is the work of the title company, to withdraw their lien from the property, so we own the property free and clear. The gentleman that's buying the property, after touring the house and realizing that it has to be torn apart and rebuilt, submitted a bid for $150,000. That's what we took to HUD and started the negotiations. And once HUD found out the condition of the property, the true condition of the property, they withdrew their interest in the property. What this means for our community is we're going to come out of this whole. We have about $100,000, according to Mark's, between all of our legal costs, all of the investment we made this year. This board approved $50,000 of work just to get a roof under it because the house was deteriorating because of a bad roof. A paint job so the neighbors wouldn't have to look at the scab that it was, all those things. We're going to come out of this about $50,000 to our good. So the last action required of us is we need a resolution approved by the board. The resolution reads, this resolution is to sell the property at 65796 East Rocky Terrace Drive, Tucson, Arizona. Whereas it is the responsibility of the board to designate the sale of this property. The purpose of this resolution is to authorize Matt Cambick, president of Saddlebrook HOA2, an Arizona nonprofit corporation, the authority to complete the necessary transaction to sell the property at Rocky Terrace. Dan Liniger, vice president of Saddlebrook Homeowners Association, an Arizona nonprofit, certifies that Matt is authorized to sign and states the resolution has not been revoked. This is the last hurdle to setting the closing date in December of '24. So I make a motion that this resolution be approved by the board.
I second that.
I have a motion, I have a second. Do I have any discussion at the board table? Residents, questions or comments?
Thank you.
This is one we're really happy to get off of our finger.
When is it scheduled to close, Matt?
As soon as I get this to the title company, the buyer and I can set a date. And so I have a motion, I have a second to approve this resolution. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous, Charlie. And I thank you all. With that, I would like to remind you of our upcoming events. On 4 December here, that'll be Wednesday, so I suppose that's 14 days from today. We'll have a meet the Chief Operating Officer, Darren Shaw. Will be here. I will introduce him. He will make some brief remarks, and it'll be the opportunity for residents, as they always did with Walter, to ask him any questions or offer any suggestions they may have to him. I'll be sitting here as his bodyguard. Obviously, he'll know. So you all know, Darren and I have had a weekly chat since we offered him a contract. We meet every week to discuss what happened that week through my eyes. And so we have been walking in. Various members of the board have sat in on some of those meetings. And so I think he's not coming here. Charlie is doing a great job of feeding him information as he requested. Obviously, Walter and Charlie have been working to set the conditions for his arrival. That afternoon, the board is going to conduct a strategic plan update workshop. We're going to take the strategic plan we developed last year, and we're going to review it. There's probably going to be some minor tweaks to it, some edits to it, so we can produce the board manual for January for next year's staff. And the good news, obviously, is we'll have Darren here with us. Our next board meeting, our last board meeting of 2024, will be on 18 December. With that, I will adjourn the formal portion of our November 20 Board of Directors meeting, and I will now open the floor to homeowner comments or questions.
Testing, there we go. Hi, my name's Mike Dunbar, Unit 17, Lot 147. I'm the president of the Saddlebrook Tennis Club Board of Directors. I'm here today to protest a blindside that happened to myself and the vice president of the board when we attended a FWR meeting on the 5th of November. I'm sure this comes as no surprise to a lot of people in here, but the board of directors of the Pickleball Association made a 30-minute presentation at that meeting proposing to take away courts in Mountain View 9 and 10 and turn them into pickleball courts. And this battle we've been fighting for the last 5 years since I've lived here, starting with the Preserve, where we gave them 2 courts while their facility was being built, and then again, another incident that happened at Mountain View not too long ago. It's very frustrating for me and the 433 members of my club that I represent that we have to continually fight a battle for an amenity that was an original amenity here in Saddlebrook when it was formed, along with golf. Now, we have no animosity towards any club in this community. We are happy that people have pickleball and they have golf and they have swimming and they have cornhole and they have whatever amenity they want, whatever amenity they moved here for that makes them happy in their retirement. More power to them. We're happy for all those people. But we would never even consider trying to steal away from someone else's amenity to further our own. It goes against everything that this community stands for. So on behalf of the 433 members of my club and the thousands of tennis players in this community that aren't members of my club that use those courts, I strongly urge the board to not consider this proposal by the SPA. Thank you.
What was his name? Mike.
Yes, sir.
This stuff takes on a life of its own. Every club can dream up whatever plan they want to. Here's what I want you to know. The commitment of this board was to a facility master plan process, okay, where we look at everything globally to defeat having single ideas presented and considered that aren't considered in the big picture. There's nobody on this board today that's considered this SPA initiative other than we've all read it. Okay, it's not a working action of this board, as a matter of fact. It was sent back to the committee for them to do their due diligence and make their recommendation to the board. So you can take it back to your 400+ members that this board is not working any action to take tennis courts away from the tennis club.
I appreciate that, and I just wanted to add on to what I said. They've been working on that plan since like May, according to the vice president, and he wanted to keep it a secret from his members. I mean, that goes against your goal of transparency, right? I mean, I don't think that it was right for me to be, I mean, I was lucky that I was at that meeting that the committee chair invited me to come to that. Otherwise, I would have never known about this until after the fact, so.
Mike, you know why we have committees?
Yes, I do know why we have committees.
We have committees to help sort this work out, because you're right, anybody can do anything, but there's a process for doing it the right way.
Right.
And that's why we have committees, to ensure the right way it gets done.
And I understand that, and I appreciate it, and the only reason I'm here today was to express my concern over it, that's all.
Duly noted.
I have one question. The 432 members you mentioned,
Yes.
are they all from HOA 2, or are they a split between 1 and 2? And
Both.
If so, how many go each way?
That I can't tell you, I don't have that number with me.
Thank you.
Okay.
There we go. Steve Lindquist, Lot 45, I'm sorry, Unit 45, Lot 98. First of all, congratulations on the sale of that house. That was really, really, really good news. Secondly, question, the new CEO, is he going to be relocating from San Diego to the Tucson area or into Saddlebrook? Do you know?
Yes, I do know. He's going to be a homeowner here in Saddlebrook, too.
Great, that's all I need to know. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, ladies and gentlemen, I will close our meeting. Have a great day.